What if we could completely redefine how humans travel? I mean, really think about it. Enter the Hyperloop. Now, this isn't just a really fast train. It's essentially a bullet fired through a gun barrel, operating in a near vacuum. The scariest part? A structural failure doesn't just bring the vehicle to a halt. It triggers a massive, high-pressure decompression event. Think of a rupture in an underwater submarine tunnel, but instead of water, you're dealing with a deadly rush of high-pressure air. In today's explainer, we're putting this futuristic concept through the ultimate transit showdown. We want to know, does this actually make economic sense in the real world?
Okay, let's just dive right in. It is so easy to get swept up in the sci-fi hype of magnetically levitating pods shooting through vacuum tubes. But maintaining a near-vacuum environment, we're talking around 100 pascals for hundreds of kilometers, that requires staggering, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure. And at the end of the day, taxpayers foot that bill. So we've got to ask the big question. When we strip away the hype and look purely at rigorous academic data and economic modeling, does the math actually support building a Hyperloop? Are we looking at a genuine leap forward or just an outrageously expensive pipe dream?
To set our baseline, we really have to rewind back to 2013. That's when Elon Musk published the foundational Hyperloop Alpha white paper. His proposal was aimed at solving a massive physics headache known as the Kontrowitz limit. Simply put, if a passenger pod takes up most of the diameter inside a tube, it acts exactly like a piston in a cylinder. The air in front has nowhere to go, which creates this massive air wall of drag. By using a low-pressure steel tube environment to bypass this wall, the original system promised mind-bending speeds of up to 1,220 kilometers per hour. But we need to know how that foundational promise holds up to intense, real-world economic scrutiny.
So here is our roadmap for the showdown. First, the arena in Poland. Second, visualizing the tech. Third, round 1, price of speed. Fourth, round 2, the taxpayer's burden. And finally, the final verdict.
Starting off with Section 1, the arena, setting the stage. To ground all this dense academic theory into cold, hard reality, we're drawing from a fascinating study by Przemysław Pączek from Kosminski University, which actually uses Poland as its economic arena. And Poland is perfect for this because they're currently pouring heavy investments into new road infrastructure and modernizing their railways. It's an ideal comparative landscape. The study maps out 12 distinct medium and long-distance passenger routes connecting major Polish cities, places like Warsaw to Gdansk and Kraków to Katowice. These routes handle the vast majority of passenger traffic in the country, giving us a really robust dataset to compare existing roads, conventional rail, and air travel directly against proposed high-speed rail and, of course, the Hyperloop.
Moving on to Section 2, visualizing the tech and figuring out exactly what we're pricing. What you have to realize is we're looking at a highly complex structural sequence here. You've got a heavy steel or concrete pipe, a near-vacuum environment inside, and a passenger pod floating on magnetic levitation. But maintaining a perfect vacuum seal on a giant steel pipe sitting out in the hot sun, that is a total engineering nightmare. Because of thermal breathing, the steel literally grows and shrinks throughout the day. To handle that, you need expansion bellows, which quickly become the most critical and prone to failure mechanical components in the entire project. This isn't just laying down steel tracks on some gravel, it requires sectional isolation valves. Think of them like the watertight doors on a submarine, absolutely crucial to contain any potential decompression events across hundreds of kilometers of track.
Which brings us to Section 3, Round 1, the price of speed.
To judge this showdown fairly, the study uses a brilliant metric called the cost of velocity. Let's break this complex formula down into plain language. It essentially asks, if you spend a single euro, how much actual effective speed are you buying? The key word here is effective. It doesn't just measure the top speed of the vehicle, it factors in your entire journey. It includes the cost of your ticket, road tolls, fuel, and, crucially, it accounts for the time you spend taking a taxi to the station, waiting around in the terminal, and making transfers. It measures the true speed and cost from one city center to the other.
When you actually factor in all of those real-world delays, look at this staggering number. The Hyperloop achieves an average effective speed of roughly 400 kilometers per hour across these Polish routes. Now remember, its top speed inside that vacuum tube might be over 1,200 kilometers per hour, but once you bog it down with station wait times and city center commutes, it nets out around 400. Still, that completely obliterates conventional road and rail networks, which sit at a pretty sluggish effective average of just 80 to 90 kilometers per hour.
And when you run the cost of velocity numbers, Hyperloop absolutely dominates. For every unit of speed, air travel costs about 0.67 euros. Taking your car, that costs 0.23 euros. But the Hyperloop, It costs a remarkably cheap 0.03 euros per unit of speed. Assuming the ticket prices actually align with the adjusted estimates from that original alpha paper, the Hyperloop is 6 to 7 times cheaper for the end user than driving a car, strictly in terms of the speed you get for your money. For the passenger, it is a total undisputed victory.
Let's head into Section 4, Round 2, the taxpayer's burden.
We really have to bring societal reality into the ring here, because these massive concrete tubes certainly don't build themselves. When it comes to construction costs per kilometer, modernizing conventional rail costs about 5.78 million euros per kilometer. Traditional high-speed rail bumps up to 9 million. But building the Hyperloop, that requires an estimated 11.6 million euros per single kilometer. Why is it so astronomically high? Well, consider the surveyor's perspective. The track alignment must be perfect to within a few millimeters. Any slight deviation at 1,000 kilometers per hour isn't just a bump in the road, it's a fatal structural impact. Creating hundreds of kilometers of vacuum-sealed millimeter-perfect infrastructure requires unprecedented, massive capital.
So let's see how this builds into our ultimate evaluation metric. The author created a master formula to balance out these competing extremes, the cheap tickets and fast speeds on one side against the massive construction costs on the other. It's called the total yearly cost per kilometer per passenger. It takes the public infrastructure spending, depreciated over a year, and combines it with the average out-of-pocket travel costs for passengers. But here is the real genius part. It also calculates the societal economic value of time lost on slower transit. Essentially, it slaps a strict monetary value on the millions of hours citizens waste sitting in traffic or on slow trains instead of working or, actually contributing to the economy.
And finally, Section 5, the final verdict. Who actually wins the showdown?
When we synthesize all this data together, a massive plot twist emerges. Conventional rail and roads act as our baseline. They're relatively cost-effective. However, traditional high-speed rail turns out to be the biggest economic loser in this whole model, coming in at a massive 94% more expensive than the baseline. But the Hyperloop? Despite costing an absolute fortune to build up front, its unprecedented speed saves the economy so many millions of hours of lost time that it actually offsets its own construction costs. It ends up being only 40% more expensive than the baseline. Suddenly, that premium looks surprisingly competitive, especially when you realize it fundamentally changes the economic geography of an entire country.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We started out by asking if the Hyperloop makes economic sense. The data shows it requires a staggering multi-billion euro leap of faith in upfront infrastructure costs. But the return on that investment is a technology that practically shrinks the country, saving vast amounts of societal time. So maybe the question isn't just whether we can afford to build it. The real question is, as a society, is paying a 40% economic premium and solving some of the most terrifying engineering hurdles in human history a fair trade-off to completely redefine the limits of human travel? It's a choice between the slow, steady baseline we've known since the 80s and a disruptive leap into the future. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll catch you next time.